Welcome everyone to Redesigning School Counseling for first year schools. This webinar will cover the preparation for Advisory Council Meeting 6, and that meeting talks about school counseling activities. So here's today's agenda. As always, we'll do a very quick review. I think this is the 6th time we've gone over this with you, but just a very quick review of the RSC beliefs and the process and the products. Then we'll talk about this month's activities, and just to kind of give you a heads up, instead of picking activities because they're fun to do or because you like them or you have a hunch that they're going to help something, our activities in RSC are really going to focus on your root causes that we discussed at our last webinar. So we're exploring activities, and then we're selecting activities to include in our program, but there will be activities specifically designed to address the root causes, the things that are getting in the way of students making good choices in your building. Then we'll look at the online system and talk about how to do some prep for the meeting, as well as how to enter the activities afterwards. And I think if your school is typical, a lot of the activities that you're already doing, you're going to find are keepers. But you may also find that some of your activities really don't address any of your goals, and then I think you'll want to ask yourself, well, then why am I doing that activity? Or you'll find goals that don't have very many activities that support them, and then you'll think to yourself, well, how could we possibly reach that goal because we're not doing anything or not doing enough things to help kids make that choice. Okay, so we'll look at the online system. One of the things I love about this online system at this point is there's a lot of crosswalks in the online system between activities and goals, and that will help you to analyze your program. Then we'll walk through the activities meeting, and finally we'll talk about the submissions for this segment of Redesigning School Counseling and look at the rubric items for each. Okay, so we'll start out with our review. First of all, RSC beliefs. Just as a review, remember that we believe that school counseling programs help students make sound choices, and that's what RSC is all about, helping kids make good choices in areas that impact academic success. So here's the school counseling pyramid, and what we believe then is that when students are involved in sound guidance and counseling programs, school counseling programs, that they tend to make better choices in areas that impact achievement, and as a result of that, academic achievement goes up. So when we've been designing our program this year, we started with the academic goals that were in your school's school improvement plan, and then we kind of worked backwards. We said, okay, what are the choices that kids need to make in order for our school to reach those academic goals, and then how can we design the guidance and counseling program to enable kids to make those choices, to provide students with guidance knowledge, guidance skills, in areas of academic, social, personal, and career so that they'd make appropriate choices, and also counseling activities so that we can address social, personal issues that might be interfering with students' ability to make good choices. Okay, so here's the process. Once again, we started this almost a year ago, well, actually exactly a year ago now, and we started out by putting together our organizational structure, your steering team. We collected data, we did some self-studies, we looked at your putting together an advisory council, a very diverse advisory council, so that each of your decisions would be based on the perceptions of lots of different types of folks. Then we went to the first meeting with your local advisory council, and we just introduced this whole project. Then at the second meeting in October, we talked about your advisory council's dreams for kids, and in their perfect world, what they visioned as the ideal school counseling program, and the ideal student achievement data. Then in November, we said, okay, if those are our dreams, then what should our goals be? So your program goals were designed around student choices. We said, okay, in order for kids to be successful at school, what are all the choices that they have to make at each grade level in our building so that they can progress successfully academically through our building? So then when we looked at that list, we thought, okay, let's narrow this list down to a smaller number, a very small number, 1, 2, or 3 goals, 1, 2, or 3 student choices that we really want to hit hard in our school next year. So we looked at expanding our resources, and then we identified that small group of goals, and we're calling them priority goals. So your priority goals are a subset of all of the student choices that you want kids to make. And it's a very small number of choices that you're going to really specifically design your school counseling program around so that you can impact those choices. So at our last meeting, you looked at what is getting in the way. Why aren't kids making those choices, those specific choices that we want them to make? And we looked at a whole lot of data. We looked at guidance data, counseling data. We wanted to see, do kids have the information they need? That would be a guidance need. Do they have a personal or social issue that's interfering with their ability to make good choices? That would be a counseling need. Or we also said maybe it's just that we're not giving them the opportunity. You know, maybe we're not giving them the opportunity to sign up for rigorous courses or to take a career interest inventory, or, you know, whatever is getting in the way of them making the choice that we want them to make. So at this meeting, now we're going to say, okay, we know what our goal is. We know what's getting in the way. Now, what are we going to do about it? So in this meeting, we'll look at each of your root causes one by one, and we're going to say, okay, what are we going to do? What activities do we need to put in place to address that root cause? What guidance activities will we put in place? What counseling activities, advocacy, and program management activities will we put in place? And again, as you look at these activities, I think you're going to find that a lot of your activities that you're already doing are the ones that you need. But especially in those priority goals, you may decide that you need to beef up some activities, or expand or reinforce some activities in order to really enable kids to make those few choices that you really want them to make. Also with activities, we want to do a crosswalk to see, are there any goals that aren't supported by any activities? And if so, that would kind of give you the idea that, you know, how are we going to reach that goal if we're not doing anything to help kids get to that point? And so we want to look at that question. Are there any goals that are not appropriately supported by activities? And then on the flip side, we also want to ask, are there any activities that really aren't leading to our goals? You know, maybe we're just doing them because they've always been done in our school, but they're not really connected with the outcomes, the goals that we want to achieve. So it may be that as a result of that crosswalk, you decide to leave some activities out that you're currently doing as well. So, but you'll look at everything that you're currently doing and then discuss it and figure out where to tweak everything. And at the end of this meeting, you'll have a set of activities that when you implement them with integrity next year, those activities are going to address those root causes. And then once those root causes go away, then the students will start making better choices in your targeted areas. And then finally, at the end of the year, we'll be looking at preparing for those activities. So we'll look at designing guidance lessons, putting together calendars, making sure that you have funding to support those activities. So we'll put together a budget, and then that will be the last step. So going back, today actually we're prepping for the very last meeting of your advisory council. And then after your advisory council has helped you select the activities, then next month as school counselors, you'll just start to prepare for those activities. Okay, so looking at the products that we have in place so far based on your previous meetings, we have a vision statement, we have goals, we have a resource expansion plan, priority goals, we now have root causes, and then today we're going to create the last product, which is your activities. Okay, so let me unmute people real quickly. And Holly, Trudy, any questions on this point? Anyone else? Questions?
No, I'm good.
I'm good too.
Okay, okay. And I don't see any hands up, so we will go on. Good. Okay, so this month we're talking about activities. We're prepping for meeting 6. So the first thing that we need to do is some really just some prep steps, and I want to talk about those for a minute. So one of the, and I'll show you all this online in a second. One of the first things we have to do before we can get ready for this meeting is we're going to send a memo to the advisory council members. We're going to remind them what your root causes are, what the things are that are getting in the way. And then we're going to say, here's some resources, some places you can go to start exploring activities that we might implement next year to address our root causes. So that they'll get in a memo before the meeting with a link that goes right to that search engine so they can go online and look for activities. Then the other thing we need to do is we're going to enter your current activities the way they are right now that you're implementing throughout the year. Because that's going to be our starting point, and then we're going to look at all those activities and figure out what do we need to add or what do we need to take away. So after you get all the activities in, then you'll print a goals crosswalk, which gives you a list of each one of your goals, priority and non-priority, and presents what activities are you doing to address those goals. And then the flip side of that, again, is you also will print the activities crosswalk report that will print your activities, and then underneath the activity it'll say, okay, this is the goal that this activity is supporting. So, and then we'll use those two reports, the two crosswalks, to kind of analyze if your activities are appropriately selected. And then also before you get to this meeting, I would also suggest that you go online and explore the two databases as well, so that you may be also going into this meeting with some ideas about new activities that you may want to implement in place of or in addition to activities that you're currently doing. So, so those are some things that we need to do before this meeting. The big ones are just getting the memo out to the council members and then entering all of your current activities online. So I want to go ahead a little bit because I want to talk about this before we get to the online system. So after the meeting, we're going to do a couple of things. There's reports that after everything's in the system that you'll be able to print. The first one is the student group crosswalk. That's going to give you a list of each of the student groups that have been identified by the federal government. So your African Americans, whites, that type of group. And it will show you if you have activities that are specifically designed to address a guidance gap. So as you looked at your guidance data, you might have found that your paid lunch students were making choices really well, but your lower income students, your free and reduced lunch students, were not making a choice for some reason. And then what we want to make sure is that you've got goals then for the student group where you're experiencing a guidance gap, where the kids aren't making choices in a way that's equivalent to their peers. So the student group crosswalk, you just push a button, that'll pop out, and you'll be able to see that. Then the guidance standards crosswalk, that again, you just push a button. Each of the guidance standards in our system will appear, and then the activities that support that specific guidance standard will appear underneath each of the standards. So just a heads up again, we talked about this at the beginning of the year, but for ASCA asks you to have targeted goals, targeted standards based on your data. But in Indiana, for schools that are working on the Indiana Gold Star School Counseling Award, Indiana believes that all students should master each of the indicators, guidance indicators. So in Indiana, there needs to be programming for every single one of the Indiana guidance standards for school counseling. So, and again, sometimes that kind of it looks overwhelming, but in most cases you can hit 7 or 8 standards with one activity. So you might do one activity to introduce on those 7 or 8 standards, another activity to reinforce, but you'll get an idea of, in this crosswalk report, about which of your indicators are being addressed by your activities. So, and then after the meeting and you've checked everything and you're happy that you've met everybody's requirements and that you've really got a sound program with the right activities, then you'll go into the online system and do any edits that you need to do. So omit activities that you're no longer going to do, drop in activities that you are going to do, and then recheck. Recheck the goals crosswalk and the activities crosswalk, and just check, is each of your goals supported by the right activities, and does each of your activities support a goal? Okay, so that's post-meeting. Yeah, now let's get to the online system, and I'll show you how this will all work. So I am logged in as Demo School. Oops, that is not true. Let me go wrong system. There we are. Now I am logged in as Demo School, and I'm going to go to the process page, and I'm going to scroll down to the activities section. Okay, so plan your activities. The webinar that we're recording right now will be here. Watch the webcast. And then send a memo to the Advisory Council members. That I've already opened that up, and yep. So here's the memo. It's a Word doc, and basically you would put it on your school's letterhead. Everything that's in red would need to be updated, so it's appropriate for your school. But you're just telling them our final meeting's on such and such a date, and then you're reminding them that here are our priority goals, and here's our root causes, the things that we think are getting in the way of kids making these choices. So you've customized that for your program. And then you're saying, okay, at our next meeting, we're going to start looking at activities. And we're reminding them that there's 3 types of activities, and we're defining those a little bit just to remind them of what guidance and counseling and advocacy is all about. And then we're providing to them 2 activity search tools that are provided by our organization. One is a school counseling activity search tool, and actually this is about 200 guidance lesson plans that other schools that are participating in RSC have entered into our system and given us permission to share. So you can get into this, I'll show you it in a sec, but you can get into it and search for activities. And then the other one, this is another initiative that we facilitate that's looking at how community organizations can get involved in helping school counselors deliver guidance curriculum. So you can also go in and search to see, what our public library is doing to help with a specific guidance standard, or the mayor's office, or community foundations, or youth service organizations, or faith-based organizations. So you can go in and look, search for activities there too. And then the last step, the memo is telling them just please bring any activity ideas with them to your next meeting. Okay, so that is that's the memo. And then the next thing we want to do is to we are looking at putting in your current activities. So just a note here, notice in the Enter Edit column that there's an icon. So I'm going to push that. And you've already used this to enter your non-program activities. So we're just using it now to enter all the rest of your activities. So when you pull this up, only your non-program activities will be here. I've done a little bit of work in Demo School to prepare for today, so there are some other activities in there for Demo School. But basically, here's how it works. And you've done this before, so I'm just going to click the Enter Edit, and then I'm going to do the activity title. Let's say that this is a, let's say I'm in a high school and I'm going to do a 4-year high school course plan workshop. And then I'd put the description in here. We suggest that you make the description very concrete and clear. I usually pretend that someone who has no idea what my program is all about, that they could read these few questions and that they would know what I'm doing and when I'm doing it and who's doing it, and what I'm doing. So the, the who, what, when, where, how. Okay, so then I'm going to select that this is a guidance activity. And we've split guidance here into the 3 different areas: academic, career, and personal social. So I'm going to say it's an academic area. And then I'm going to open up select program goals. And this, when I click this, it's going to open up the goals that I've already put in. So here's the goals that I put in after one of my previous meetings. And I see that have an up-to-date written for your course plan is one of my goals. So I'm going to say, okay, here's why I'm doing this activity. I'm wanting to help us reach this goal. So you can select more than one, but I'll just, to save time, I'm not going to read through the rest. I'll just click that one. So now I have that identified with a goal, and you can see right here on activity type, the goal appears right after that I have an up-to-date written for your course plan. Now, here is something else that could happen. You could say, I want to do this activity, and it's something that I know is good, and I'm going to do it, and you get in here to select your goal, and there's no goal that aligns with. So now we have a problem. So the first question should be, if your activity doesn't align with one of your goals, then why are you doing it? And that may be a good activity that would be a candidate for getting rid of. So you may decide to omit some activities. If the activity is just something you've always done and you're not really sure why you're doing it, it's not aligned with one of your goals, then to me it might be a real time saver to just get rid of that activity so that you have time to do some more targeted activities with your goals. Okay, but the other thing is you could look at that activity and say, oh my gosh, I forgot a goal. And I really do have that goal. I just wasn't thinking about that when we did the goals part. So now we need to go back and enter a goal. So if that's the case, if you've forgotten a goal, you can just click right here where it says enter new goal. That'll take you back to the goals section, and you can create a goal and then come back here and then associate the activity with your new goal that you've created. Okay, so just kind of a little shortcut. A lot of schools, once they start putting activities in, then they think, oh man, I really had this other goal. I just didn't think about it when I was in the goal section. And remember, all of your goals should be around student choices, things you want, practices that you want kids to put in place. Okay, so now the next thing we want to associate this activity with is indicators. So I'm going to click on Select Indicators, and here are indicators that we use in RSC. They are all aligned with both the ASCA National Standards and the Indiana Student Standards for Guidance. And this is the set where if you are an Indiana school, you need to be able to have an activity that addresses each one of these indicators. In just giving you a heads up on how to look at the indicator number, the first number there, 6-8, means that this is an indicator for middle school for grades 6 through 8. The second number tells you that what guidance area it's in. 1 is academic, 2 is career, 3 is personal social, and then the third number is the actual number of the indicator. So everything that you need is here. You don't need to type anything. Just go through and check the ones that you would need. And somewhere in here there is one about 4-year high school course plan, which I'm not seeing right now, but I think you get it. You'd go through and check the appropriate one. Okay, so I'm going to close that window. So I've selected my indicators, and then I'm saying what grade level is this for, and maybe it's for more than one grade level, and what student groups are they going to be, so all students. This is where, by the way, there has to be at least one of your activities that's addressing a guidance gap. So once you've gone into the data, if you find that your free and reduced lunch kids aren't making, let's say in this case you've looked at the data in free and reduced lunch kids, a significantly lower percentage of them have a high school 4-year course plan. You may want to put in like an activity that's an extra one-on-one with those kids, and in that case it wouldn't be for all kids, it would just be for the free and reduced kids that needed that extra time. So okay, I'm going to go ahead and put in all students. And then when are you going to do this? When I was in the schools, I typically did this in right after Christmas. And then who's responsible? This is a drop-down menu of your steering team. And if it's not someone whose name appears here, then you can just say someone not listed here, and that will open up this box and just type their name in, and then they'll appear next time. So then you just hit save, and you can save and add a new activity or save and return to the activities page. I'm going to save. So okay, so that is in there. I have a note up here that says that my changes are saved, so I'm good. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the process tab and scroll down again to activities. So I've now entered all of my current program activities, and as you can imagine, this takes some time because you're looking at all of your guidance activities, you're looking at your personal social, your counseling activities, any advocacy activities that you're doing. You've already got in your non-program activities, so that's good. But it'll take some time to get that in there. But it's really important that you take that time because there's going to be reports that you're going to give to your advisory council. So we want to make sure that those reports are complete. Okay, and let's talk about those reports then. So when you go to your advisory council meeting, one of the reports that you're going to want to take with you is this program goal crosswalk. And notice that you don't have to enter it. This report is generated from the previous goals that you entered and the activities that you just entered in the step before. So I'm just going to open up that report, and you can see here that it's listed my priority goals. So I now know that I have an up-to-date written for your course plan, that there's an activity in there that's going to address that. And then here's my second goal about FAFSA, and I've got an activity to address that. So in this section, what I'd be asking myself is this enough? Is having one workshop to talk about for your course planning, is this enough? In my school, we thought that it was probably going to take a workshop, then an individual meeting, and then another individual meeting to really drive it home with the kids. So I might have had a series of activities here to drive this priority goal. Then the other thing we did is we put in the non-priority goals, and my guess is I've just entered a few activities for demo school, but my guess is once you get all of your activities in, that your other goals that you have will have activities underneath them too. But I wanted to show you this because this is what it looks like if you don't have any activities to address a goal. So, and for example, if I were looking at this one, my goal is that we want all kids to choose to discuss their future plans with a school counselor. If I don't have any activities associated with that, how is that going to happen? So, so we just, want you to understand in this section that you may have some of your non-priority goals that that aren't supported by any activities. And then during your meeting, that will become part of the discussion. And you may decide, hey, given the amount of time and the amount of energy and resources that we have, we're not going to be able to hit all of our non-priority goals this year. And this is when I went to my principal with this report. We were able to acknowledge that our counselors could not do everything. But we also said, okay, one a year, we're going to take one of these goals, add it to the list, and design more activities to make sure that we're addressing that goal. And that meant that our principal had to get creative about how to provide time for our counselors so that we could do that. The other thing, though, is you're looking at a sheet where I haven't put in all of the school's activities, but my guess is when you get all of your activities in here, you're going to be blown away by how much you're doing and how many goals you're already helping kids with. And I think when you distribute this report to your advisory council, if you're like most of our schools, your advisory council is going to be blown away. There's so much of what school counselors do that's misunderstood or just not understood. And this report makes it very clear, all of the goals that you have for kids and everything you're doing to help kids reach those goals. It's really for advocacy purposes. This is a wonderful report. We've had several schools that have added counselors after going over this report with their advisory council and then their school board, added a guidance secretary, or maintained positions that were being considered for riffing after they went over this report. So it's just a great report. I really like it. So okay, so that's the program goals crosswalk. Then the other crosswalk that's in here is the activities crosswalk. So I'm going to go ahead and open that one. And basically, here's some activities that I've put in that right now this AP dual credit recruitment with federal lunch program kids, this activity, it's not associated with any goal. So now I need to ask myself, do I have a goal? Do I have a goal to increase the free and reduced lunch kids who are enrolling in AP and dual credit? And if that goal is already in there, then I just need to go back and associate the activity with it. But if the goal's not in there, then I might want to go back and create that goal if that really is one of my goals. Or it might be that, I really don't have that goal, not this year. So if that's the case, then you could go back in and delete that activity because, if that's not a goal for your program, then why are you doing that activity? So anyway, so this is just another report to help you really analyze your activities and to think about each activity. What's it doing? What's the purpose of it? Is it aligning with the goal? If not, and if it doesn't, then what does that mean? So, okay. Okay, so now, so we've printed these two reports to take with us to our meeting. And then the other thing that we suggested that you do before your meeting is to start to explore what other schools are doing or other communities are doing to help in your goal areas. So in this one, this icon with the little magnifying glass, that's the search icon. And I can just go in here and say, let's say that I have a goal that has to do with career interests. I could just, say, show me what all the other schools who have entered lesson plans are doing around career interests. I can also further narrow this down by saying just these grade levels or just activities for black students or free and reduced lunch students, or just show me classroom guidance activities or individual guidance activities. Only show me plans that have to do with all academic areas, so you'd make this blank and then put in all academic areas. And then you just, after you have narrowed down this search, you just search, and I have no idea what's going to come up. So right now there are 6 lesson plans that are around career interest assessments. And it tells you who entered that activity. So this one was entered by a very fine Indiana counselor, Julie Brenninger, and at Zionsville West. And I can view the full lesson plan. I can print a report with that lesson plan. But the other tool we've given you is that if you like this activity from Julie, you can just click Import, and that will bring it into your school counseling program. Once it's in there, it'll give credit to Julie. It'll give credit to whoever wrote it to begin with, so to reference them. But then you can edit it, to fit your specific needs. So that's just a little bit of a tool there. One other thing on the search that I wanted to show you, in terms of the guidance indicators, let's say that you're an Indiana counselor and you know you have to hit all those indicators and there's one indicator that you're not hitting. You can go in here and just do, this will open up, it takes a long time, but this will open up a list of all the indicators, and then if you click on one, all of the lesson plans that are in there that address that indicator will appear for you. So, and then there's lots of other things you can do here. You can say, if you like that lesson plan from Julie at Scienceville, just, you can see what else Scienceville's doing. So just type in Scienceville and do a search, or see what else Julie's doing. Type in her last name and do a search. So, so lots of different ways that you can search there. So again, I would, if it were me, I'd want to get some ideas before I went into my meeting about other things that we might be trying. And then the second search tool is community activities. So if I click on that one, it kind of works the same way. But it is, on this one, I can put in, like, for example, let's say that I'm going to do career. I want to see who's doing something with career, and I'm developing a relationship with our public library. So let's see if any other libraries across the state are, and here's 18 activities that public libraries in Indiana are doing around careers. So here's Putnam County Library in Greencastle, Bedford Public Library in Bedford, and there, as schools outside of Indiana are using this system as well, there will be out-of-state, outside of Indiana activities as well. Okay, so that's that search tool. And then we're going to conduct the meeting, and we'll walk through that very, very quickly. And then after we conduct our meeting and we have the activities in, then the other thing we want to do is to look at the student group crosswalk. So here are all the student groups, and if I look at this one, it's here's one activity where an activity has addressed a student group. So I'm okay in terms of having my guidance gap, at least one guidance gap addressed for RAMP and for Indiana Gold Star. I personally, when I was doing this, I had a lot of programs. I was really big on closing guidance gaps. And so I would really look for, in the data, which kids are getting it and which kids aren't. And we would have specific programs, activities that were targeted towards groups of kids that weren't making choices the way the other kids were. So, but the minimum requirement is one of your guidance gaps is addressed. Okay, and then the guidance standards crosswalk, let me show you that. This one, if you're outside of Indiana, this would be just for your information to show you which indicators you're not addressing. But if you're in Indiana, we'd want to have each of these indicators have an activity behind them that is addressing that indicator. And again, once you get all your activities in, I think that you'll have tons of these indicators already addressed. Okay, so then after you've looked at everything, the last thing you do is update your program activities. So we would go back into your list of activities, and as needed, delete activities, edit activities, add activities, so that you have exactly the right activities you need to address your goals, but also to close an achievement gap, and to make sure in Indiana that you've covered all the indicators. And then meeting minutes, and then finally the rubric is here. Okay, so so that's the online system. Let's look at I'm going to just fly through this. So here is the slides for meeting 6. And the process, we've already looked at this, so I'm just going to fly through this. Okay, so in activities overview, the first thing we're going to do with your advisory council is to review the vocabulary, because they haven't seen this maybe since the beginning of the year or maybe even last spring. So we're defining each of the types of activities: guidance, counseling, advocacy, management, non-program, and then we're reviewing that the activities focus on the root causes and the root causes then address the student choices. So in this slide, we're showing them that here's 5 activities that we did, but we did those activities to address these root causes. And then when we tackle those root causes successfully so that they get out of the way, then we believe that students will make more sound choices in the areas of our targeted goals. So we're just kind of reminding people that when we're picking activities, it's not just kind of haphazardly. It's not just because this would be fun to do. It's specifically to address those root causes. Okay, so today's question is, what activities should we implement to address each of the root causes? And then there's the different types of activities. And then question number is 1. The questions we're going to be looking at today is, do we have sufficient activities to impact each of the priority goals? And if not, should we delete the goal, just get rid of the goal if there's not enough activities to address it, or revise the current activity, or add a new activity so that we're hitting that priority goal in a sound way. And then the second thing we're going to do is we're going to look at some of our targeted non-priority goals. I'll talk about that more in a minute. And then the same question, do we get rid of these goals? Do we revise the current activity, or do we add a new activity? And then, does each of our current activities support at least one program goal? And we're looking at it the flip-flop now. And if we have an activity that doesn't address the program goal, should we get rid of the activity, or should we add a new program goal? Okay, so then we're looking at the priority goals crosswalk. So you have given them a copy of that report that's got each of the goals listed and the activities underneath it. And so for each of the priority goals, there would be a slide like this, the next couple of slides, where you'd say, okay, our first priority goal is to increase the percentage of students who blank. And then you would have filled in, the reason that kids aren't making this choice is because, and then you've added all the root causes in there. So this slide is just to remind them, and we're just talking about this one priority goal. So then in the next section we're saying, okay, let's look at the crosswalk report, and this gives you the goal, and find that goal, and then let's look at all the activities, and then the questions we want to look at and just kind of talk through is, are there any of those activities that should be omitted? If so, we know that will save us time. Are there any activities that should be revised? So they'll talk about that. And then the last question is, are there any activities that we should add? So it may be that the activities we're doing right now are fine, but we're just not doing enough of them. So they would brainstorm activities, and then after they're finished brainstorming, you would decide as a group, just talk it through, should we add any of these activities for priority goal 1? So I'm going to review that real quickly. So we're reminding people, here's the goal, here's what's getting in the way, here's the activities we're already doing. Is there something to address that goal? Is there something we should omit or revise, or do we need to add activities to address that priority goal? So for priority goal number 1, you're doing that, and then we're just going to repeat those steps for each of your priority goals. Most of you only have 1, 2, or 3 priority goals. So you're just looking at each of the priority goals and really honing in on those activities to see if those activities are going to do the trick. Okay, so now we also want to look at the non-priority goals. Our suggestion to you is that on that crosswalk report that you look at some of the non-priority goals that you think are more important, because even though you've targeted 1, 2, or 3 things in your priority goals, there's other goals that are important to you, I think, as a department, as a program. So if there are non-priority goals that you think are really important, you will have asterisked those goals. And here's just an example. So if you thought that submitting the FAFSA was important, it's not a priority goal, but you've put a star next to it to say, let's look at that one. And the activities are listed under that, and you're saying, okay, let's just look at that flagged non-priority goal. Is this enough to make sure that kids submit the FAFSA, or do we need to add something more or revise this? or do we have activities here that really aren't doing the trick and we just should get rid of them and try something else? So there may be just a handful of other goals that you really feel strongly about that you want folks to discuss in addition to the priority goals. And again, that's your choice. But if you do decide to do that, again, the discussion is, are there activities for that goal that should be omitted or revised, and are there things that we should be adding? I mean, for me on this one, if it's submit the FAFSA, I don't think having kids attend one financial aid night is probably going to increase that percentage. You know, to me, it's going to take that plus some one-on-one work with the kids. So, so I might want to add some activities for that non-priority goal. Okay. Then, so that way we're looking at the goals crosswalk. Now we're going to look at the activity crosswalk, and we're giving your advisory council that activities crosswalk report, and then you're just asking them, does each of our activities support a goal? And if not, it will show up in red like the flag that's on the screen. This activity does not support any goal. And then you might just talk through with your advisory council, should we add an activity, or should we get rid of, should we add a goal, or should we get rid of this activity? So delete the activity or add a goal if you have this mismatch there between your goals and your activities. Okay, and then final checks. So this is really important. One of the things I'm always afraid is going to happen at this point is that everybody's going to be so fired up about helping kids that you are going to overextend yourself, and your advisory council will overextend you. So on this slide, we're coming back to a final check to say, okay, let's make sure we're being realistic here. We've talked about all these activities. Here's how much time is available next year. And then, we've allocated 30% of our time is going to be spent in guidance, 40% in counseling, or whatever your percentages are. And then you're just asking, given the time that's available, are the activities that we have planned for next year, is that realistic? So, and if you feel it's not realistic, you have to speak up here, because if it's not realistic, you won't be able to deliver next year, and then your data will look bad, and people will think, whoa, you told us you were going to do this stuff, and you didn't. So this is where you got to speak up and say, well, wait a minute, given that we, only have a certain number of hours, and this is how we've allocated our time, we probably don't really have the time to do all this. Let's go back and look at what needs to come out. I would suggest if you do that, take out a goal first, and then all the activities associated with that goal would come out. Okay, and then also we want you to look at the resources. It may be that, that again, your time resource is off. It may be funding, that, you need some funding to do some of those activities, and you're not going to have the funding to take all the kids on a campus field trip. So again, this is your last chance to speak up and say, I would love to do this, but it's just not going to work. Here's why. Let's go back and tweak so that this fits within our time and our resources. So finally, this is the last check, and what we're doing here is just making sure that you are meeting all of the outside requirements. So are there any state laws or district requirements for guidance activities or counseling activities that you have to put in place to meet an outside group's expectations of you? So like, for example, in Indiana, students have to have a high school graduation plan that includes a 4-year course plan. So if you were to not have that in your program, you'd be in trouble. So we want to just look at all of your state laws and requirements and make sure you get those all in. Then for the ASCA RAMP award, we need to make sure that there's at least one activity that addresses a specific student group. And to check on that, and what the reviewers will check when they check your portfolio for RAMP, is they'll just check to make sure that in that student group crosswalk report that you've addressed a student group. And then also ASCA has a requirement that you've involved students in group counseling. So we need to make sure that at least one of your activities addresses group counseling. So we just need to make sure that you've got group counseling in there if you're planning on submitting for Ask a Ramp. And then for Indiana Gold Star, we need to make sure that for the Indiana Award that, again, you have the specific student group, an activity that's going to address a student group, and also that you're addressing group counseling. And then in Indiana, the requirement is that you have at least 3 activities that address academic guidance, at least 3 activities address career guidance, and at least 3 activities address personal social guidance. Skills that kids need to learn, like assertiveness or that type of thing, what to do in bullying, but that you're doing guidance lessons. So again, that's not counseling, it's guidance where we're teaching. So, and then also we need to make sure in Indiana that you have at least 1 activity that's addressing each of the Indiana guidance standards. So, again, sometimes that sounds overwhelming, but you can hit 4 or 5 standards or indicators with 1 activity. Okay, so then finally, consensus check. Can we live with these activities? And can we publicly support them? So, so that's it. Okay, I have one other thing to show you. And this is really helpful in that we believe very strongly that there are a lot of different people that can teach the guidance content to students. We believe that while you do need a degree in a helping profession to do the counseling side of school counseling, that there are lots of folks who are knowledgeable about careers and academic development that can provide the guidance activities. So, and my guess is that there are a lot of people in your schools right now that are doing that, especially if you're in a middle school, your family and consumer science teachers. A lot of their national curriculum overlaps with the guidance curriculum. So family and consumer science, a lot of the health curriculum overlaps with the guidance curriculum. So we wanted to give you a tool to kind of figure out where that might be happening. And I was amazed when I did this in my school. The counselors were teaching kids, for example, how to create a resume, and we found out that that was being taught in 3 other courses. And none of us knew that the other one was doing it. So this is just like a survey to create a guidance activity map. So, and this is optional. But if you want to see who else is delivering guidance curriculum, guidance activities, you would just give this to your teachers or to community members. So in our school, we also sent this to our Boy Scout troops and our 4-H groups, our church youth groups, to see, what guidance is happening in the community. So, so the person would just circle, who they are, and then they would write the name of the activity, a brief description, and then what percentage of the students at your school do they estimate would participate in this activity before leaving your building. If they say 2%, then you're not really covering that for all kids. But if they were to say, my 3rd grade classroom, we do this with every student, or in my 5th grade classroom, every student takes career interest inventory, then you've got it covered. You don't need to worry about that because your 5th grade teachers are doing it. So this is just a little survey that you would give your teachers, give adults, and they would fill that in. And then you can actually take these activities and put them right in the online system too. It's part of, it can be part of your guidance curriculum. So that's just a way too that there's probably a lot of academic and career especially, but social personal too, guidance going on already in your schools, and it's just an idea. It's just a matter of identifying it and getting it all logged in. So, okay, let me go back real quickly. I think that does it, but I think, let me just look at this real quickly. We talked about that. We did the walkthrough, the submissions. So there is these submissions. You're looking at putting in all of your activities, guidance, counseling, advocacy, management, non-program. We're looking for these rubric items that all parts of each activity is complete and that the description is clear and concise. If it's something that we have no idea what you're doing after reading your description, then that would be problematic. You would probably be asked to go back and redo that. And then on the counseling activities, we need to make sure that at least one of them involves group counseling. And the description for group counseling names each of the activities that will be included during the group counseling sessions. So if you're doing an 8-week group counseling initiative and it's going to be 8 activities, we need you to name those 8 activities. And then in the next part, next month, you'll also be asked to create guidance lessons for each of those activities. So, but we need to name them in the description. And then for guidance activities, this we just went over that, a specific student group, and in Indiana at least 3 activities for each of the guidance areas, and then that you've addressed each of the guidance indicators. So, and then minutes, same as always, that the same rubric items for your minutes. So, and then finally, you know, we talked about this earlier, but for you guys especially, this is the place where you want to be able to deliver the program next year. And if after you've delivered it, you'll be able to see the student choice data change. So please don't let yourself get overextended here. You really need to speak up here if you don't feel that you're going to be able to deliver the activities that are identified. And then just really quickly, a heads up. 1 year from now, we'll have new data. We suggest to schools that they do our survey each year. And so a year from now, we will specifically look at just your priority goals. And you'll be asked in the online system, did you do each of the activities that were aligned with those priority goals? And you'll just check off yes, 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 yes. And then if it's data that's in the survey, we'll provide the follow-up data, or if not, you'll provide the follow-up data. And then we'll just ask you, did you meet your goal? And you know, if all those activities have been implemented, you should. And then again, that's really great for advocacy. Plus, you know, you're on the right track. You know, those activities made a difference. Kids are making better choices because of the work that you did. I know when in my program, when we looked at that data, I was just always so pumped to see, you know, that we started out with 20% of the kids making this choice. You know, we got it up to 93% of the kids making the choice. It was just such a affirming feeling that it was time, you know, well spent, and that we were truly making a difference in the lives of kids. So just a heads up, each year we'll go through and check that data to see how it's moving. Okay, so let me go back in and see if we have questions, and if not, that will do it. So, oops, trying to, there we go. I can't get that to unmute. Let me try this one more time. There we go. So I'm going to mute people, and just let me ask you, everybody's unmuted. Does anybody have any questions before we go on, or before we close?
No, I'm good.
Sue, I have some questions.
Sure.
And it's not just about this meeting. It's kind of a hodgepodge as I'm looking at the rubric and things I missed, and, you know, as I'm working ahead. Is there a good time to catch you in the office? When I call, I don't catch you in.
Yeah. We ideally would like to put a support person in to help with this. Right now it's me, and we're training. We have a new staff person who came on yesterday that we're training to also take those questions. What I would do is just shoot me an email, and in the subject line just write meeting requested, and give me some times when you might be available, and then I'll check my calendar and we'll schedule a meeting.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, great. Anything else?
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes, again.
Is there, and I know we still have some processes to go yet, but is there an ultimate deadline this year of when everything's got to be inputted and submitted and locked up in the system?
Yeah, in Indiana, that date would be June 30th. The review team is going to meet in July, so we really need everything to be in, and then next month we'll show you how to submit the portfolio. If you're for schools that are outside of Indiana, the ASCA deadline is in October sometime, so there's a little bit of a little bit more time outside of Indiana. But again, you need to, outside Indiana, be able to finish up and print reports and put them into your portfolio that you're submitting to ASCA, or talk with us about doing a review for you. We do reviews outside of Indiana. So you can call us and ask us if we'll do that review. And if you are going to have us do it, it would need to be done. Your completion date outside Indiana would need to be June 30th as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, any other questions? Okay, very good. So I look forward to talking with everybody and hearing how your next month and hearing how your last advisory council meeting went. And then we'll just do the wrap-up stuff next month, and then that'll be it. So thank you, everybody. And as I always like to close with, remember that you are doing good things in the lives of kids. So thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.